So to understand what's the definition of unemployment, we first of all have to understand who are really participants into the job market. So on the flow chart on the slide, you will see, generally speaking, for the total population can be divided into two categories. One category is considered as labor force, and another category is considered as out of the labor force. So what's the definition for labor force? So the labor force are the people age over 16 and who are either employed or actively seeking work. So what does this mean? So that means not everybody should consider as labor force. So they have to either already have a job or who is actively seeking for a job. So if you think about yourself, are you considered as labor force? The answer will be depends. If you are actively seeking job, and then you are labor force, and also if you are half-time students, and so you are also will consider as labor force if you are using your half of your time to work at another job. And for those who are not working and are actively seeking employment, and they actually will consider as out of the labor force. So as we just defined labor force, and employed, and also people who are actively seeking for a job. So for those who are actively seeking job but haven't got a job, so they will consider as unemployed. And so the labor force comprise in the U.S. about half of the population size. And so since 1960, U.S. labor force has moved, then doubled. So this growth has come from two distinct sources. So the first is because the population growth, and for the second one is because after World War II, and ladies start to participate into the job market. So think about before, the women are stay at home, and they call the um, bread maker. So they try to raise the kids and the family. So they are actually not actively seeking job on the job market. So that's why they were not part of the labor force. But since um, the society is encouraging women to find a job, and more opportunity offered for ladies, and more ladies participate into the job market. So which means they are actively seeking jobs or they earn a jobs. So that's why we will see the rise labor force. And here we have to mention about labor force participant rate. So this is the percentage of working age population working or seeking employment. So the percentage of the working age population working or seeking employment. And so as we just mentioned about the source why the labor force is growing, and I want to connect this growth with the chart we learned in the first chapter, the production possibility curve. So we mentioned the production possibility curve indicating the best mixed output the nation can produce. So you can see before the labor force growth, we have that orange dot, orange line. So as more and more the population growth, and also the women be able to participate to the job market, we will see we have more resource to use in the production. So that's why we will see we will see the production possibility curve moving outwards. So that means increasing the labor force actually will increase the capacity to produce goods and services. So which means it's a good sign if we have more people participate into the labor force. And however, the question is, if we have good amount of people participate in the job market, but if the country cannot create enough job, so that actually going to create problems. So that's why we're going to define what is unemployment. So the unemployment is the inability of the labor force participants to find jobs. So what does this mean? That means we do have enough people want to work. However, we cannot offer enough job for those people who are actively seeking jobs. So that's why the unemployment is inability of the labor force participant to find a job. So keep in mind, to understand the definition for unemployment, first of all, you have to understand the labor force. So that's why we first introduce the definition for labor force before we introducing unemployment. So, which means if you are a full-time student, you don't have any part-time job, you actually will not affect unemployment because you are not actively seeking job. So, however, if you graduate and you're not going to graduate school, but you are on the job market looking for a job, by then you're affecting the value of the unemployment rate. So, why unemployment is so important? Based on the Oakland's law, actually a 1% increase in unemployment actually will result in a 2% decrease in GDP. So now let's think about in the introduction video for this chapter I mentioned, unemployment actually is the second major macroeconomic issues the government has to deal with. So now you should understand one of the reasons why is as we increase in unemployment rate, actually will result in our national economic growth will decrease. So 1% increase in unemployment results in a 2% decrease in GDP. So that's why every country will spend a lot of effort to deal with a very high unemployment. And however, do you think if the unemployment rate equal to 0 will be the best? And the answer would be no, and we will discuss it later. So now let's keep looking at the unemployment. And so a person is counted as unemployment if he or she is not working but is actively seeking work. So based on the portion of the unemployed person and the people in the labor force, and we create an index called the unemployment rate. So that's the rate you always can hear in the news, in the radios. So this is unemployment. So the unemployment rate is the proportion of the labor force that is unemployed. So if we try to use mathematical formula to show how to calculate unemployment rate, so here is the unemployment. So unemployment rate equal to the number of the unemployed people and divide by the labor force. So this value should always smaller than 100%. 100%. So let's see in 2010 we have 14,825,000 people are unemployed. And the total labor force we have is 153,889,000. So then in order to figure out the unemployment rate, we are using 14,825,000 divided by 183,889,000, and then we end up 9.6%. So this would be the unemployment rate in 2010 in the United States. So I can let you know now 9.6% is actually considered very high. And so 2010 is about 2 years after the financial crisis. So it was not surprising us because the economy is still in a recovering phase. And so let's do more practice in terms of how to calculate unemployment rates. And in your homework, you're actually going to do more practice. So the number one key is you need to remember the formula. So unemployment rate equal to the number of the unemployed people divided by the labor force. So let's see, we were calculating unemployment rate. So the number of the people in the labor force is 200,000. The number of the people is unemployed is equal to 10,000. So what's going to be the unemployment rate? Yes, you're right, based on this formula on the slides. So the numerator will be 10,000, and the denominator will be 200,000, and the 10,000 divided by 200,000, and times 100, so we end at 5%. So which is, this simulated scenario is much better than the 2010 unemployment rate, so which is 5%. So we consider this is as okay unemployment rate, and the reason is why? Because it's very close to our full employment. So we will define the full employment in the later videos.